Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports Soccer podcast. I'm Sandra and Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports. Joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's segment, we are going to do an NWSL weekend recap for you all. But quick, before we get on into everything, a reminder to subscribe to us on YouTube for NWSL extended highlights, exclusive interviews, our live recaps, and so much more. YouTube.com/attacking third. Subscribe. It helps us out big time here on the show. Lisa, we're doing this live on a Sunday where there's no matches. Everything has been put away on Friday and Saturday, and we get to just do this on a Sunday with our listeners.
It was, yeah. Friday, couple matches. Saturday, 4 that we went through last night. So we decided, why not do a little brunch this morning with our listeners and our fans live on YouTube. So thanks everyone for joining us live. You can subscribe, like this video, and join us the conversation in the chat. We want to hear from you. But yeah, there was a lot going on this weekend. We got a lot of really positive results, really defiant results, I'm going to say, across the league, which gives a little inside look into certain teams that maybe we hadn't seen enough from that I'm excited to dive into. But on this Sunday morning, there was some other news that happened as well right before we went live.
Quite frankly, just literally right before we were going, like, we were off mic, we were going through our rundown, we were trying to read tweets, the links, letting people know, hey, hop on, join us. And unfortunately, some injury news coming up here at the top of the hour before we were getting ready to go live around Catarina Macario recently announced that she has torn her ACL and will be out for the foreseeable future. That coming on her direct social media accounts, retweeted as well from the U.S. Women's National Team. And she's already locked in, saying that it's going to be a challenging recovery, but that she believes that God's in control of everything, and she has no doubt that with the right support system, patience, and hard work, she'll be back better and hungrier than even before. But the news dropped, and quite frankly, we were shocked when we saw it and a little bit horrified, I think, if I'm being as honest and frank as possible. Just you hate to see that or hear that happened for a young player like that of her caliber.
Incredibly sad to hear and to see. The only positive, I guess, is that she seems to be in good spirits and knowing that she's got a recovery ahead of her, but she's starting that and she's on her way. This is a player that just won Champions League with Lyon in Europe. She plays alongside Lindsay Horan, another U.S. Women's National Team midfielder. So with World Cup qualifiers coming up this summer, this definitely changes things for the U.S. team. Besides, I mean, personally, of course, like, speedy recovery to Kat. Our everything goes out to her. I mean, this is just heartbreaking. This is a lot of ACLs we're seeing this year that has happened across like the U.S. Women's National Team. I mean, Tierna Davidson, center back for the U.S., who plays for Chicago, now Catarina Macario. Lynn Williams is on a season-ending injury as well. It seems to be her hamstring. This is just one after the other after the other. It's horrible, and this changes things for Vlatko Andonovski and the U.S. team ahead of qualifiers that are coming up this summer. There's a international window coming up in June, just a week or so away. So because of that, this changes how that roster will look. I know we're touching on it right now, but we will also have Lori Lindsay on tomorrow for the U.S. Women's National Team Hour to talk about this, to talk about the World Cup roster for the U.S. and now who Vlatko Andonovski puts into that 23-player roster. So YouTube for the U.S. Women's National Team Hour tomorrow. We go live from 3 to 4 with Lori Lindsay. Join, and you can hear her thoughts on this horrible news out of Catarina Macario about her ACL.
Yeah, I'm eager to hear what somebody like Lori Lindsay has her take on it. Someone who's not unfamiliar with having to come back from injury herself, and just sort of get the maybe the mindset of what comes next, right, for something like this. And we're locked in on A3. We want to start. We're looking ahead already to something like the Concacaf W Championship that's going to be taking place in July. Had some fun things lined up. Like, we're going to be doing 23 player rosters that we want to see go. So this is some stuff that puts other things in perspective for us, where we're going to have to maybe take a real deep look at the forward line and the midfield core in terms of what that could look like in July and, quite frankly, moving forward. So we'll see, but best wishes in terms of a recovery for Catarina Macario, but because it broke so early, we didn't want to hop on here and just dive into NWSL action without being able to react to that a little bit with our listeners here before diving into the games that took place over this weekend. So speedy recovery to Catarina Macario, and we are going to be talking about some weekend matches here across NWSL, all 12 clubs in action. 6 matches between Friday and Saturday that took place. Let's start with maybe the high scoring affairs here with NWSL this weekend. We had a couple of blowouts. We had a handful of blowouts taking place this weekend, and I know that in some of our previewing we were saying like we want to see some little lopsided scorelines. I know it's a couple of these teams. That's what we were asking of them, and I think some of them delivered, but we're going to start. We have to start with the highest score line of the weekend, which is Houston Dash against Orlando Pride, putting up 5 goals on Orlando Pride, a hat trick for Nichelle Prince. Lisa, maybe let's start with the picks. We did a preview of this game. I think we both went, we went with Houston in this one, so yay for being correct in that. But I don't think
we both went with Houston. But did either of us imagine 5 goals for Houston?
I'm like, I don't think we could have imagined a 5-0 scoreline for this team, or maybe even a hat trick for Houston and Nichelle Prince. But I'm here for it. I think. I think coming out of this game, when we're seeing these performances from this Houston Dash side, one of the things that was surrounding this team was the fact that they had to start off their regular season with some unfortunate headlines around the club. So they had to start off their regular season being eliminated from Challenge Cup contention. They had to start off their regular season without their head coach and James Clarkson, who was asked to, was recommended to be suspended or removed away from the team as an ongoing investigation is currently underway. This is something that is stemming from 2021, where there is just a collective investigations that are going on between the league and Players Association, just across the league, in terms of investigating certain things. And so they, based on recommendation, they said, we're going to be moving forward this season with Sarah Loden as the interim for now. So there hasn't been an update in terms of the ongoing investigations right now with James Clarkson, Houston Dash, the league, the Players Association. And because of that, that is why there is that title still over Sarah Loden of the interim head coach. We don't have any intel in terms of what that's going to mean for the future of this club. But in the event, I think the Dash find themselves needing to look for a permanent solution. I don't know how you look at this start for this club and how they're playing and reacting with Sarah Loden and not give her the nod. I mean, it's a really impressive start that we're seeing out of this Houston Dash side, getting results and picking them up and getting them over. Not just people might look at level of competition here and say, okay, so you put up 5 goals against Orlando, but this is a team that also went into Portland and took it to them and came out with a win there. So just some good stuff from the Dash to start this season.
Completely. I think the conversation right now about Sarah Louden, the interim head coach that stepped into this role, is a really good conversation to be able to take a team that wasn't necessarily yours, you were an assistant on, and be able to change things. Says a lot about Louden and what she can do with the player personnel that she's been given. But when we looked at this matchup between Houston and Orlando, I mean, yeah, huge props to Nichelle Prince. She got that first hat trick. And even after that first goal, the confidence changed in Prince, and she was more willing to go at the goal and take those shots and take a little bit more risks. But Sandra, you always usually ask me about the starting lineups, and this starting lineups that we got for both Houston and Orlando, I was shocked at Orlando because they were missing Carrie Lawrence in the back line. Celia was also out, and those are two outside back defenders for Orlando and Amanda Cromwell that have been consistent in those roles, especially Carrie Lawrence. And to not have them in there, it had Gunny Jonsdottir dropping from a midfield position to an outside back role, along with Carrie Abello, who was a rookie for Orlando. So immediately, as I saw that starting lineup, I'm circling those outside backs because Jonsdottir is an incredible defender and she's a great player in the midfield. But to rotate her into an outside back position, it's a different role. It's very different. And when you're going up against Maria Sanchez and Michelle Prince, Prince and Sanchez had to be chomping at the bit to get into those open spaces. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, 3-0 at halftime. And it was Sanchez and Prince occupying those spaces where there were newer outside backs in the role for Orlando. A really nice job at doing that and finding those spaces, the weaknesses of your opponents, and then really digging your fangs in and going at that. And that's exactly what Houston did. We have to give a shout out to Rachel Daly as well, because she was involved in every single part of the attack that Houston had. It was such a big game for Daly. Now she's leaving Houston. She goes to Europe for the Euros with England. So I think a way for Daly to leave and kind of put her stamp on this league and this Houston team before she heads overseas was really impressive to see. Jane Campbell in goal for Houston had a really good game. It was the complete picture for Houston, and we have not seen that. Against Portland, we saw great moments, and we saw Rachel Daly doing what Rachel Daly does and getting these goals and good moments. But it was a full 90-minute game of 11 players on the pitch for Houston, competing really well, putting a high press on, winning the ball back. All 5 goals came in the run of play, none of them from set pieces, which I thought that's pretty impressive to do. It's one thing to score off set pieces. It's one thing to score in the run of play, and in a variety of ways, crosses into the box, long balls over top, balls on the ground, shots, headers. It was a variety of goals from Houston. It was a good game. I think Rachel Daly had a quote after the game, something like unbelievable. Like, I think this was the best we've ever played collectively.
You get amped after games like that. I mean, I think a huge part of it too is that, quite frankly, this is a league in which scorelines like that don't happen often. I think you can maybe count them off on your hands the amount of times where there's been like a 5-goal plus.
And honestly, it could have been 6 or 7. I think Michelle Losey.
Yeah, one got called off, I think.
Yeah, one got called off. There was another one. Michelle Losey could have had one towards the end of the game. She got subbed on, and she ultimately got the 5th goal that happened for Houston. But I think she could have had another one. It was almost like a copy and paste situation. She scored the second one. So it was like 7-0. Are you kidding me?
I think for me, I think what's most impressive about Houston, just with this game specifically, is how much they're doing with how little they're doing. I guess, if that makes sense. I mean, just with this game alone. I mean, they had less of the possession. They had less touches, far less touches on the ball. We're talking 576 total touches to 731 from the Pride. They were not great in their passing percentages. They, I think, were under 70% in this one compared to Orlando with over 80%. And their pass attempts into the final third, again, almost under 60%. I think it's 63 compared to Orlando Pride. So I think these goals coming in on some of these services into the box were just incredibly well-timed, well-executed crosses or services or passes over the top and into the box, just making it count when they needed to make it count. And I think that is, if anything, that makes it even more impressive. Even when you're creating this much or doing this much with the little that maybe you're doing in some of the other statistical areas. When we're looking at Orlando Pride, though, in this one, this is a team that had put together a string of results, at one point, and now coming off of a tough loss like this, we saw some pretty good looks from Sydney Leroux in this match. I think, not having Jonsdottir available or maybe moving her out of kind of that deeper midfield role maybe kind of came back
hurt.
to bite. It kind of
It
came
hurt
back to
them.
bite them in this one.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think you make that adjustment and say we're gonna lose this 5-0, but it was evident that something was not working there for them, and that was part of it. But huge, massive win for the Dash here, and really, I think good way to start off their June. Good way to sort of bid farewell to somebody like Rachel Daly, who's so big for them in the team. But we've got some more lopsided score lines to get through here. Portland Thorns versus Angel City. This one ending in a 3-0 scoreline in the way of Portland. They're taking all 3 points with all 3 of those goals. I got to say, this was another match. For me, I think for both of us, Lisa, we went Portland in this one. We're looking at picks. So we both went Portland in this one, but this is another one where I think we can maybe echo some similar sentiments here, right? Less possession for Portland, less touches, total touches on the ball. The passing percentages are maybe a little bit more level there between these two teams, but making it count. I mean, Sophia Smith making sure that this team got on the board early with the service to Kelly Hubley, and Kelly Hubley putting this away and getting a goal. So you're talking the opening 15 minutes, you're already up 1-0 against the opposition, and then just minutes later you have Sinclair getting on the ball again, so they have this 2-0 lead going into halftime, and then just past the hour mark it's Sinclair again making it 3-0. I almost kind of felt like was this going to be a game that was going to have a really big lopsided scoreline?
5-0.
Yeah, like maybe like Houston, right? I was like, oh geez, I was like, maybe it's something in the water about these matches that took place on during the later nights. We talk about NWSL After Dark all the time, but I'm just like, geez, I'm like, maybe it's just one of these things that are it's going to be sort of a theme this weekend. But yeah, no, I love it. And I think for the Portland side of things, if anything, I'm really enjoying kind of the link up. I'm enjoying the assists more than maybe the execution or the finishing. Smith, Sugita, Janine Becky getting on the scoreboard with that assist to Sinclair. I think that's very, very promising for a team. I think that's been looking for maybe a little bit of a bigger score line.
Oh, completely. This is Portland's first win since April 30th. They are back on the winning side of things, and they did it in a very commanding way. And I was impressed with the Portland side that we saw. We knew what we were getting. In the first 10 minutes, I was like, okay, Portland's getting a goal. It's coming any second now. 15th minute, it came off a corner kick. Kelly Hubley gets her first NWSL career goal. Love to see it when a center back gets a goal. Sandra, we love it here at Attacking Third. But it was great for Kelly Hubley, but it was like Portland was bursting at the seams with all the attack they had, all of the pressure that they were putting on Angel City's back line. We saw for Angel City, Tyler Lucy in the back line again, playing in that outside right back position. She actually had a goal line save after a goal or a shot, excuse me. It was a Smith, and then Sinclair took a shot from it, and Lucy was able to save this off the goal line. But yeah, I mean, Danny Fitzpatrick, I agree. Sophia Smith, wow. This player was everywhere, all over the pitch. She looked confident in her abilities. She looked like she knew what she was doing. She knew exactly the holes that she needed to get into. She was playing off of Sinclair so well, which we've seen. We've seen them have that great chemistry and be able to go back and forth with each other and read each other and play off of each other. But the chemistry between Sinclair and Smith was really impressive and fun to watch. Smith was getting better shots on goal, better opportunities in front of the goal, where she maybe didn't do that in the last 5 or so games with Portland. It was like, come on, Smith, you got to put those away. And now we saw her playing much more to her potential and much more relaxed and comfortable. She, on the corner kick, she got the assist for Kelly Hubley's goal, and she was instrumental in both of Christine Sinclair's goals. As you mentioned, Becky, huge job for her. There was also a goal called back for Portland, so it could have been 4-0 in this match. And unfortunately, Sophia Smith got the yellow card called against her in that play, so the goal was called back. But this was a fast-paced game. Portland controlled it despite not having the possession in the numbers wise. Portland controlled this game. It was almost like Big Brother Portland putting little brother Angel City in their position a little bit. Just, we talked about in the Challenge Cup, Portland won the first one and then Angel City won that second matchup and spoiled the Challenge Cup playoffs for Portland. And now Portland,
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think like when we were doing a preview of some of these matches, like some of them and making our picks, we were like, there's going to be, there's these matches where you have these teams going up against each other where there's that familiarity from the Challenge Cup, and maybe that leads to clogged games a little bit, or maybe they're just kind of like games that kind of grind out because of the repetitive nature of playing the same team over and over. But that, I think for the Thorns in this one, we didn't really see that as much. I'm with you on Smith. Everyone's, sort of responding and reacting to Smith's, presence on the pitch for the Thorns. And I'm loving what we're seeing from her as a player. Just, even in this game, getting the assist in this match, leading the team in chances created during this match, with 4 second behind Sinclair, and in total shots, I believe in this one as well. It's not just so much that she's someone who can be, clinical in front of net. We've seen that. I think it's an area that she's still working on early in the season, but it's also just her creation and her ability to just kind of stretch these back lines and kind of open up lanes a bit for her teammates. That kind of keeps that attack looking, maybe unpredictable, I think, for some of the oppositions, and tough to, I think, at the office for Angel City. When we're looking at the Angel City side of things, I think maybe we got to take a look at how this is going to be a new month for them. It was an impressive May that we saw from Angel City, but now we're looking ahead. It's a new month in the regular season here, and I think maybe what we're going to start to see is maybe a little bit of difference, I think, in competition when it comes to seeing some of these teams moving forward. I mean, you have a lot of the narrative during that first month of regular season play where we heard it from all the teams, quite frankly, whenever we were getting on calls with them or participating in media availabilities. It's about still establishing your level of play, figuring out team identities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We hear that verbiage coming out from these teams, but something happens when you trek into that second month of the regular season. That stuff is starting to get figured out a little bit. And I think even though you had so much familiarity between these two teams, that you see a team like Portland that has certain levels of experience on it within their, some of their young, players on the team that kind of show through in these moments. I mean, a Christine Sinclair brace, I think that's part of what tells the story of a match like this as well. So good on them. I know this was a team, I think I said, yes, I'm going Portland, but I wanted to see a little bit more of a statement win. I'm like, I need to see more goals from this team, and we got it in this one.
Yeah, we definitely did. I want to look a little bit at stats just before we close out on this side, because Angel City, they've generated so many corner kicks throughout this regular season. 15 last weekend, and they couldn't get a goal. 13 against Portland. So Portland gave away 13 corner kicks, but Angel City needs to be capitalizing on those set piece opportunities. It needs to happen. If you're getting that many opportunities in and around your box to send balls in, you have to have a variety of plays that you can do, whether it's low driven balls to the near post, you're playing it short. We saw that a number of times. Wait till we get to Kansas City game. That's how they scored both their goals, but playing it short, change of direction, and getting the ball in there, lofting it towards the back post. You have to have a variety of plays and be able to capitalize on those opportunities. And Angel City's just not there yet. With the amount of corner kicks that they're generating, I'm disappointed in the lack of result that we're getting from them on those corner kicks.
Yeah, I think that's an area where it's like you're looking at areas of which maybe they can try to improve on. And I think maybe moving forward into the matches remaining in the month of June for them, it's something that they're perhaps going to try to keep an eye on. That could be like a little X factor for this team if they can work on that and get that right.
Completely. I'm always picking out something that teams can get better at. Come on, that's what we do here.
Let's take a look at this final lopsided scoreline for the high scoring affairs over the weekend. Racing Louisville FC versus North Carolina Courage. I think for the picks in this one, Lisa, what do we break down in this one in the preview?
You had North Carolina. I had a draw
You
between
had a
these
draw?
two sides. It was my draw was also contingent on Kerolin being back. She was back for North Carolina. Not only was she back, she got a start. We saw Dr. Nadia Nadim on the bench and also get minutes for Racing Louisville. There are just so many storylines around this game. But of course, North Carolina wins 3-0 over Racing Louisville. Another dominant win. That we saw in the first win for North Carolina in this regular season, which is shocking.
Yeah, I think listen, I don't blame you there. I think this is a team that we wanted to see. We wanted to see the success of their Challenge Cup translate into the regular season, because this is a team that we were used to seeing getting results, getting wins during that moment, and it wasn't necessarily something that we saw translating into this first month of regular season action. But now here they are, going up against Louisville on the road, making some noise pretty early in this, getting on the board very, very early, opening 5 minutes, Dabinia to Kurtz, boom. You are, I think, are already setting the tone right there. Having somebody back in the mix like a Kerolin, I think, sort of maybe re-energizes your team a little bit. This is a player that they were very clearly excited to add to the roster and to the locker room. And I think the few having the ankle sprain and being out for the month of May, and now getting back on the pitch and getting her legs back underneath her, I think is going to be helpful for this team moving forward. But having that early start to this match, and then kind of adding another one just before halftime with Matthias to Ordonez, I think that maybe kind of, it's like a bookend a little bit, I think, for that first half, right? For this team. And it's you're down, if you're the other side of the pitch, you're down 2-0 going into half. And that's not an unmanageable game, right? I think if you're looking at things from the other side. But, again, we're talking about maybe putting some numbers out here, in terms of these matches. Louisville, again, just despite seeing a ton of time on the ball, they had the majority of possession in this one. And we hear a lot about how this league, it's a very, very transitional league. And this, I think, is another one of these games where we just sort of saw that you don't need a ton of the ball in this one if you're gonna come out and get these type of results.
Yes. The numbers and the scoreline of this one, I don't think it's necessarily entirely indicative of how the game played out. Racing Louisville had chances. They had moments. They had the ball, as you mentioned, had a lot of possession. Jess McDonald had good looks. In the 25th minute or so, she had a bullet of a shot off the post. It was a breakaway moment for Racing Louisville, and that's what we saw, right? We saw those moments where Racing Louisville had that high press, which is something Kim Bjorkegren wants his team to do, win the ball back higher, and then quickly look to go and attack. And North Carolina's defense is organized, right? When looking at these starting lineups, I mean, Kerolin was back in the starting lineup. There was Deanna Ordonez, Brianna Pinto, Dabinia, Kerolin, and then the back line really strong for North Carolina with Pickett and Matthias and Casey Murphy in goal. So North Carolina had full strength across the board in their starting 11. So because of that, you give a lot of credit to the defensive abilities of North Carolina, because Racing Louisville didn't make it easy. It wasn't an easy game for North Carolina to defend, because Jess McDonald was very dangerous when she got the ball. Amina Ekic subbed on for Racing Louisville in the second half, and she created a lot of opportunities on transition, getting the ball at her feet, creating opportunities. It was a quick game because Louisville was looking to go fast in transition, and North Carolina also does that. But the fact that this opening goal for North Carolina came in the 4th minute, that hurt Racing Louisville, right? Like, that was a bit of a dagger. And then getting that second goal right before the halftime, it's different going into the locker room down 1-0 at a goal that came in the 4th minute versus down 2-0, a goal that came at the start of the half and at the end of the half. There's so many more pieces now that you have to pick up and put back together. And then, of course, Dabinia ends up netting the third for North Carolina. And this was a beautiful goal. It was an incredible ball over the top. She was not offside. Not at all.
It came all the way at stoppage time, like final stoppage time.
And it was a great goal. She was wide open. I liked this game a lot, actually. I liked what we saw from it and everything that came about it, but you can't just look at stats because it doesn't tell you exactly what happened or score line. Because I think
there was a goal that was called off, I think, at one point. And like you could see, and then the stretch of the second half, it was a different second half, I think, for this Racing Louisville side. You know, when you're looking at kind of that insurance goal coming from the Kurds, I'm pointing it out because it came in 90th minute plus stoppage time, you know, and I'm just kind of like, well, that's because within maybe that second half, Louisville was, you know, making their effort to sort of get back in the game. And, you know, that's soccer. Sometimes you can't control how the officials see things or don't see things. I thought she was on, McDonald was on for that, but you know, moments like that, you wonder if the goal's allowed or it could shift things a little bit. But perhaps I liked what we saw from Louisville more in the second half than we saw, you know, in that first half. Kind of maybe leveled things out a little bit. You know, if you do want to look at the stats on this one, if you do want to look at the numbers, you know, the 12 to 10 shots for Louisville, or even the attempts on goal, 3 to 5 compared to North Carolina. But I think if you're North Carolina, this is a game that you're looking at and just sort of maybe saying, yes, here it is. Here is the game that we've been looking for to maybe kind of, you know, that sets the catalyst in motion for them to kind of maybe go on a bit of a run here, have a streak, because it was the month of May was I think a tough one for this team, among other teams, trying to sort of get their footing back in from Challenge Cup and then into the regular season. But that's it for the lopsided high scoring affairs for NWSL. We've got 3 more matches to get through in the episode, and we're going to do that after a quick break.
Shall we begin?
Step 1,
2,
3.
That's perfectly normal. It's an honor.
Here we go.
Why are you so handsome?
My dad was the weatherman. That sounds big. It's been on my vision board for years.
All right, let's get back to it. 3 more games to get through where the difference was just 1. Let's start with Chicago Red Stars versus OL Reign. 1-0 in this match. To go ahead and take a look at the difference. All 3 points for Chicago, just on 1 goal. I think we got different things to talk about when it comes to these 2 teams going head to head. Chicago Red Stars, I think this is the game where maybe I really got to ask you, Lisa, about the starting 11s more than anything else, because the Red Stars find themselves in the full swing of their kind of heavy match load portion of their schedule, going up against an OL Reign side that are coming off of a regular full week of preparation. But there are some player rotations coming into play for the Chicago Red Stars because of their current scheduling. And you have an OL Reign side with, quite frankly, just an incredibly talented roster that also has a lot of experience on it as well. And I think in this one, we have to note that. We have to note that for the Red Stars, they had a ton of first-year players going into this match against OL Reign.
Completely. I mean, starting lineups, when we look at OL Reign, no Jess Fishlock, no Megan Rapinoe. So those were big losses. I think Jess Fishlock, a little bit more surprising to me than Megan Rapinoe, who's been in and out, most recently out with a bit of a back injury. But for Chicago, Mallory Pugh getting the start. We talked about her getting limited minutes in the midweek action, coming off the bench. And I think we both dubbed that she would get the start in this match. But Ava Cook, Griffith, Aguilera, really impressive and fun to watch these young players in this league. I mean, Ava Cook, I'm blown away by this player. I'm loving watching how she's playing, her movement off the ball, her ability to combine with Pugh. It's interesting because it's like the Pugh game for Chicago. When you look at the stats, right? She scores the goal. She's the one that got the game winner here for Chicago, but it's so many other pieces around Pugh that are bringing it all together. And a huge part of that goes for the rookies. And then when you look in the midfield at, Colaprico, who's helping hold this team together as a veteran on this side, who can really lead all these rookies and what they're doing and these young players. But the goal from Pugh, I mean, she had a number of opportunities, but it was the opening seconds of the second half. And that's a way to come out of the locker room, right? And for OL Reign defensively, their first mistake, which is the only mistake you can't make against Mallory Pugh, is letting her out of your eyesight, because that's what happened. They were marking her. The ball was played in and around, and then it went to the other side, and you just see Pugh float away from the Reign defender, and she becomes wide open. And when you give her that much space, which is not that much, it's about half a yard, but that's too much space for Pugh. She can get the ball, and she's so composed, and she can finish those types of balls. She looked like so casual finishing this ball. It was a beauty. It was really such a nice goal from Mallory Pugh. I love the goal too. I was covering this game in the press box and watching it live. There were a couple things that were like running through my head as I was sort of taking all this in. It was that we're still seeing some of the same issues, some of the same problems for OL Reign in terms of their attack and their finishing. And we're seeing the continuity for Mal Pugh and sort of being this kind of elite player for a team like the Red Stars, a team that has come into 2022 with a ton of first-year players. We're talking players who were selected in the draft, players who went undrafted and just got, called into the Red Stars, and other players who are maybe not, are still getting up to speed to the level of play in terms of NWSL. And just sort of seeing this, I was also very excited to watch OL Reign live, because I had the same sentiments watching them last year. It was like, we're going to get a chance to see somebody like a Le Sommer, or somebody like a Jennifer Marozan or Bouadi, et cetera, right? But I still had that same feeling around this team watching them this year. I still think the Reign are, in terms of the talent across the roster, is one of the most talented squads in the league. And I think even with their starting 11 without a Fishlock, it was a pretty strong starting lineup to have on the road against Chicago. But I think maybe something interesting to note is that this is a Reign side, and Laura Harvey too. Under Laura Harvey, they've struggled a little bit at times in Bridgeview at SeatGeek Stadium. There, the record's not particularly great for that, but it was something I was curious is if maybe that's out the window with this type of roster and the talent that they have on it. But we saw from the Reign trying to make things happen, and maybe people didn't see this on the stream, but looking at even just stream was a little hard to see at times.
Just seeing the kickoff from my perspective of the press box, you saw OL Reign line up over the ball and get ready to kick off, and they overloaded the left side. They had three players. It was Lavelle, Latsko. It was their front three. And it was like, well, maybe they're going to just, and they did. They tried to lob it really quickly and generate, but didn't work out. And I think you have to give some of these first year players a big chunk of credit. I have to shout out Jill Aguilera in this one, a rookie just getting, I think, second regular season start. That's a tall order to be tasked to mark a player like Sofia Huerta. And watching this sort of kind of collective effort to kind of isolate her a little bit from the game, I think sort of paid dividends in that first half, especially because when you go into a second half 0-0, at this point it's anyone's game in the second half. And I think to have Mal Pugh just sort of do what she did very early in that second half, I think only benefits a team like the Red Stars, who are trying to, who are on short rest in this one. It was a quick turnaround, having to go through some player rotation of their own, and then go ahead and be able to sort of get this result. I think if you're one of the young rookies of the Red Stars, you should be really, really proud of this result, because we're talking about these couple performances from going up against the Thorns, then going up against Washington Spirit, and now going against Arena. These were all very competitive matches that we saw from these Red Stars, despite some of the results.
Yeah, incredibly competitive. I honestly was very pleased with what I saw, and I don't think we give enough credit to Fallon Tillis-Joyce, goalkeeper for OL Reign, because this game easily could have been 3-0 for Chicago. And Fallon Tillis-Joyce just really did a nice job stepping up, making huge saves, which is frankly what she's done throughout this entire season, and that's why she's been so good. 6 saves against Chicago in this match. But yeah, I mean, so much credit to Chris Petroselli and what he's been able to do with young players at Chicago, and bring them in, get them bought into the type of game that Chicago wants to play, despite having a lot of rotation in their players. But yeah, I liked this game. There was a bit of technical difficulties on the Twitch stream. It was a Twitch exclusive for this
I kept seeing reaction.
I was chatting with, I knew you were at the game, and I was chatting with our social media manager, and I was like, is it me? How's your internet? How's my internet? What's happening here? But second half was much better with that. So I'm glad you were at the game so we could get some in-depth analysis about how the teams were lining up. So thank you, Sandra.
It was just something that was like curious. I was like, that's very, very curious. I was like, oh, they're going to overside this overload the left side here. But it just, I don't know if they just got away from that a little bit. Maybe thought that they were able to, go ahead and dictate some things, wide and through the middle at times. But it just wasn't happening for them. It just it's another one of these matches where you're seeing the build up from this team and the finishing even there. But even within this game, I think we weren't necessarily even seeing that from the Reign either. I mean, the Red Stars limited the Reign to 1 shot on goal in this match, with over 5 total attempts in the game. So it's just I think you could see the frustration. I think it seemed like the Reign's kind of post game and sort of seeing that they just weren't happy with the result in this one. I think if you're the team coming in with the full week of preparation and rest, you wanna take it to the other team that's on, a quick turnaround with heavy legs and first year players. But I love that. I was in the press box watching the game, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun for me, Lisa, to talk about, because I think we both finally win like Chicago in this one. Although I was like nervous, I'm like, well, it could maybe be a draw. And for OL Reign, I think they just did it they figured it out a little too late, I think, in this game, because we saw a lot of promising things, I think, in the wider spaces for the Reign, but down the end of the stretch, and they just, quite frankly, I think, ran out of time. So congrats to all those first year Red Stars getting a win against the pretty talented team. Another game that had a narrow scoreline: Gotham FC versus Washington Spirit. Gotham taking all 3 points in this one. 1-0 with a goal from Midge Purse. I think we're going to echo maybe some similar sentiments here. Lisa, I just want to start. Let's just start talking about it right here from the jump before we actually get into the game stuff. The Spirit have had quite the match load to begin 2022. And getting to see this match, I think we're still seeing how kind of exhausted this team is. And it's getting a little tough. I think if it's hard for them to play, I think it's starting to get a little tough to even watch.
I mean, and they're not done. They still have a game on Wednesday coming up. They play again in 2 days time, 3 days time. It is tough to see kind of what has happened with this Washington Spirit side. And also they before this match, there was a bit of an availability report that came out for these sides, and Washington was hit with a little bit of COVID protocol and then some other players out, knowing like Kelly O'Hara was still listed as out. There was just a number of rotational players there. Trinity Rodman not on the not on a substitute list. This is the first game that she didn't start for the Red Star or for Washington. And because of that, I mean, this poor Washington team, right? They've just been hit and hit and hit and hit. And honestly, it's not done because they play again on Wednesday. And I think that's hurting them. Even towards the end of this match, you could hear Chris Ward on the stream saying, like, when is the game done? How much time is left? What's happening? Because as a player like Andy Sullivan coming back from a bit of an injury and now getting consistent minutes and having to be a player to step up and play all of these minutes is hard on her. And when we look at Hatch and Sanchez, I mean, Hatch getting a 90-minute game, like this is rough. This is a rough time for Washington. They're almost done this stretch, but I mean, I'm happy for Gotham to take advantage of the tired legs of Washington and be able to get a goal and get a win, because that Gotham needed that. I mean, neither of us had Gotham winning this game.
No.
I had this listed as a draw, or excuse me, I had Washington in this one, and you had it listed as a draw. I thought Washington was going to squeak it out, but Margaret Purse, she gets a goal for Gotham, which was a long time coming for Margaret Purse and a long time coming for Gotham.
Yeah, something an angle that we were talking about during the preview is this was Challenge Cup familiarity between these teams. So I think the familiarity between these two teams, having played each other already a couple of times, and knowing that the Spirit were going to have another type of exhaustive game for themselves, was what pushed me towards potentially picking a draw in this one. Kudos to Gotham for playing the game, that the opposition that was in front of them. Listen, this is professional soccer. There's the reality is just that you're not going to get a ton of sympathy if you're the opposition going through something. That's just the truth. Is it true that the Washington Spirit have had a completely exhausting schedule? Yes. Does that mean that the opposition that you face is going to have a pity for you? No, they're not. But that being said, I think we still can chat a little bit about Gotham, and that they were not able to maybe stack up at least a couple goals on Washington Spirit in this one. Thrilled for the goal that the breakthrough goal that happened for
21st minute. Our first half goal.
I love that it was a bit of a combination, or link up with Anamanu and Purse. Love the extended run that Purse was making. I mean, she wanted to make sure that this ball absolutely got back into the net, that she crossed the goal line as well. So I loved that from this Gotham FC side. But I thought maybe there would have been some more for them, but another narrow scoreline in this one, but not for, I think, lack of effort. I mean, again, we're talking about maybe some of the numbers and bringing the numbers into this match. Double the total shot attempts for Gotham in this one, 14 compared to 7 from the Spirit. Attempts on goal 5 to 2, in comparison to the Spirit, 4 shots that were blocked. So there's some things here where you can see that there was an effort to maybe try to go ahead and take advantage of the fact that there were some tired legs, some tired players out there. And for the Spirit, quite frankly, I think they're just trying their best to deal with this very, very heavy match load. I mean, we saw minutes for Marissa Sheva in this one, Lisa.
Yeah, I know. Marissa Shiva signed just a few days ago and already on the bench and getting minutes for Washington Spirit. Chris Ward's searching for players. Shout out to Marissa Shiva. She's a local Philly gal that I know. So good to see her back in the NWSL. But I want to call out our chat right now. VU, he mentioned, in your guys' opinion, can Washington come back? This is a very long season. And yeah, we have to look at the spell that Washington has gone through these last couple of games. They just lost, and tying the 4 previous before that. It's been a bit of a rut for Washington. However, they're still scoring goals, right? I mean, 6 goals for, 7 against. Like, they're able to find the back of the net. I think it's a long season. And right now in the standings, Washington number 10. But we're starting to see Angel City fall off this high precipice that they were on as an expansion side to start this season. As good as San Diego has been, I don't think they're going to stay at the top of the standings. So, like, there will be so much rotation that happens with the standings, and it's the top 6 teams that make playoffs. Washington will bounce back. It's a very long season. They have international windows where Washington's losing a lot of players, but so are a lot of other teams. I mean, Houston loses a lot of players. There's a lot of players that are coming and going for these international breaks. Washington will be fine. They'll come back.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question to ask. So shout out to VU, but I just think that with the expanded competition this year, with 2 added clubs in Angel City and San Diego, and combine that with the type of history that this league has, I mean, it was already a league with a lot of parity and being praised as one of the most competitive leagues in the world. And I just think, based off of just general history in NWSL, the first half standings of a league table compared to the second half standings of a league table are always completely flipped. I mean, if we want to just take where Alex Morgan was last year with Orlando Pride, again, had a great run of form in the beginning of the season for Orlando. I think had her best season with Orlando to date was that final season that she had with them. They went on an impressive 7-game undefeated streak, and then they turned over in the middle of the season. Had a coaching departure. Players struggled to sort of regenerate that sort of early magic that they were doing on the pitch, and very quickly fell out of playoff contention towards the second half of the season. So it's just one of these things that the first half of seasons always maybe look a little bit different compared to the second half of seasons. And I think that the Spirit have got a pretty heavy match load right now, a tough start to their regular season, but that's not to say that maybe they're going to get some relief towards the later stage, of that, where it really does kind of come down to those final 6 weeks at times. But it's absolutely something to keep an eye on. For sure, for the moment. I think for the Gotham side of things, I think maybe you're trying to maybe just sort of stay in the mix, for right now, when you sort of have that experience in the back of your head when you're maybe looking long term of running a table during a season where, listen, if you just sort of tread water and sort of keep pace now, and at the beginning you can maybe try to really make that streak towards the end. And we saw this Gotham team break through to the playoffs there with a little bit of help on decision day. So we'll see if maybe this is a team, maybe this is a win that perhaps sort of puts in motion some things for this Gotham side, because despite being a narrow scoreline, I liked what we saw from them. I thought maybe there was going to be a second goal at certain points, but it just goes to show maybe even kind of exhausted Spirit side and kind of maybe you have a player like Kingsbury, in goal. It sort of maybe changes some things, I think, in terms of the potential for there to be a lopsided scoreline, but points are points, right? And this one, points
are points for Points are points for sure, but Gotham, their expected goals in this one, 1.46. I think that's the first time it's been over 1 all regular season.
Yeah, that's a very good point to bring up. We'll see if it's
they are just expected goals. I personally don't love the expected goal stat just because it doesn't matter.
I love it. It does matter.
It's hard for my soccer brain to wrap around, because are they actual chances you created? But no, it's like the probability that you're going to score a goal. So like, I'm not a math person. I'm not good at those kinds of stats. As my soccer brain, it's hard for me to wrap around what like an expected goal is. But when I saw that 1.46 for Gotham, first time they were over 1, that was a little bonkers to me. I understood that stat.
You're like, this is that I understand. We're going to close it out with a draw in this one. The only match that ended up in a draw this weekend, it's Kansas City Current versus San Diego Wave FC, a 2-2 draw. Both clubs splitting the points here in this one. Oh, gosh, Kansas City. I thought maybe they were going to, shock some, maybe make us regret our prediction. I think we both went San Diego in this one.
Yeah, we both had San Diego winning in this match. And honestly, this game was back and forth, right? I mean, Kansas City, they get an opening goal off a corner kick early, 10th minute, 11th minute or so. Kristen Hamilton, she nets this one. It was a short pass from the corner kick. So a redirected corner kick, not directly taken from the corner, which changes the angle and the direction that the ball is coming from, which proves to be a bit difficult for San Diego defense to keep track of. Kaylin Sheridan in goal, struggling a little bit with that as well. But Kristen Hamilton netting a 19th career goal for her. Kansas City going up 1-0. But who else but Alex Morgan getting an equalizer? But she does it in very classic way this year for Alex Morgan. A penalty kick in the 35th minute, a handball in the box. It looked to be Elizabeth Ball for Kansas City. And then Morgan stepping up to take it. That's her 4th penalty kick that she drilled this year. It was her 7th goal. That was her 7th goal in 7 games, her 4th penalty kick. She ends with a brace on the night. Yep. So she's Golden Boot leader right now, 8 goals in 7 games, 4 of those penalty kicks. 4 of the penalty kicks that she scored, she did not draw any of them, but hey, she's still scoring, finding the back of the net. But I think going in at halftime for these two sides, 1-1 for Kansas City and San Diego, was a good scoreline between these two sides based on what we saw. Kansas City having a lot of control, I think, in more ways than just one, in the ways that they were able to press, win the ball, keep possession of it. I saw really good things from Elise Bennett. Man, this player is going places. She is getting better every single week that we're seeing from her. You can tell that she's putting in the time at training and she's wanting to get better. She ends up getting the 2nd goal for Kansas City, her 2nd of the NWSL season. This is also off a corner kick, a short corner kick with Alex Luera. It's played back and then back to Luera, a little 1-2 pass and the change of angle into the box. And Elise Bennett gets on the end of it for Kansas City to go up before Alex Morgan equalizes for the 2nd time in the 89th minute. This time run of play, though, not a penalty kick. But
that's a tough goal to concede, though. I mean, you're talking about closing out a game here. You got to close out this game if you're Kansas City.
It was a turnover. It was a turnover in the midfield, and San Diego went quickly in transition, finding Sophia Jakobsen and a great little ball through to the back post, and Alex Morgan finishing it correctly as she should be doing on that back post. But the giveaway can't happen in the midfield from Kansas City. That hurt. Can't
have a turnover that late in the game. No. You're going to get punished in this league, and he got punished by two veterans to do it. Sophia Jakobsen is someone who is new to NWSL, but this is a Swedish international who knows what it means to kind of be in these late game situations. Alex Morgan is on fire right now, so I think it's a tough result to drop. I think at this point you're saying, yes, we've got all 3 points in the bag, and then you just don't anymore. I do love what we saw from Kansas City, and this one I love that the opening goal was kind of attributed to the experience with Labonta to Hamilton. I love that the rookies linked up for the 2nd goal and in Loera to Bennett, and then just to sort of, quite frankly, drop the ball literally in this one, a tough one. But splitting the points, walking away with 8 points, I guess, is better than walking away with no points. But we're seeing these things from Kansas City, and again, another team where we're just like, we really want to see that the Challenge Cup success maybe kind of translate a little bit more. But maybe with that tough May that they had, maybe this is going to be something where they look forward to sort of ironing things out in the remainder of June. But that's it for all of the games that took place over the weekend. Thank you all so much for joining us live. We appreciate when you spend some time with us. Thank you for listening. to Attacking Third. You can follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at Attacking Third. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to your podcast shows. We're also available as video. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Visit youtube.com/Attacking Third. If you have questions for us, you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with your question, and we'll answer it during a mailbag segment. And we'll be back with so much more this week. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.